Gio Benitez, ABC News, and of course, this was a little bit of pent-up demand because at the beginning of the week, J-Dog, a lot of the East Coast, a lot of people on Sunday and Monday with the weather that came in with that rain and winds not really getting out. So busy, busy time of year, and I can't believe we're just days away from the big guy in the sleigh on the rooftops. But we're looking at a pretty good-looking Wednesday here, J Dog. Good morning, New Hampshire. Jack Heath, J Dog, and of course 9 to noon. The Pulse of an H streaming. More people listening, streaming here for a news talk than any other source. We appreciate it very much. WTPL, WTSN, Seacoast of New Hampshire, right up into Portland, Maine, 1270 AM, 98.1 FM, WEMJ, WASR, AM and FM. J Dog, not a bad looking day before we go live to Iowa. Paul Steinhauser with Fox News and GMI Studios. Good morning, New Hampshire. There with a busy lead up to the caucus. Before we get to that, J-Dog, not a bad looking Wednesday. Got some sun out there and about 40 for a high? Yeah. Did you catch the Ellis River or that river up in Jackson? Yeah. Mount Washington Hotel, Bretton Woods, pretty much underwater. And we still have some a little pond in the backyard that wasn't there a few weeks ago. All right. Hey, as I said, we got a full show for you this morning. I want to thank Mike Dennehy for filling in yesterday. Yes, once in a while, you have to do the funeral thing for good friends, and sad but wonderful day to remember Dan Palmer of Portsmouth. What a wonderful celebration of his life yesterday in Portsmouth. A service at St. John's Episcopal Church in downtown Portsmouth, followed by a great event to remember Dan. Dan was a wonderful builder, developer, leader on the seacoast. The Pease International Trade Port would not be Pease today without Dan and Renee Plummer. And they pretty much revitalized and started to do the private development there for all the businesses there, like Sig Sauer and the hotels and the companies and the manufacturers. And look at the vibrancy of Pease. And it's one of the best examples ever in the United States of America of a transformation of an active military base to sort of a combination of the ongoing mission of the air fueling mission of the New Hampshire Air National Guard, but pretty much a private base now with things like the golf course and all the things at Pease. It's really an economic juggernaut. It's hard to imagine the seacoast of New Hampshire or southern Maine without Pease. And Dan Plummer, really the leader of that with Renee Plummer. And it was a wonderful remembrance yesterday. Dan, great life lived. All right. Hey, we got a full show for you. As I said, Paul Steinhauser's hanging out in Iowa. Well, we got that going for us. Wonder how things are in Iowa. Of course, that's a different process. The caucus process, and Paul will help explain that versus our primary vote, which, believe it or not, happens on Tuesday, right around the corner, January 23rd. We'll be broadcasting live that day from the West Wing at St. Anselm College Institute of Politics that morning and that evening with our panel of political all-stars and experts. Hard to believe, but Iowa will go before the caucus. It's not an actual vote. It's more of a political that you kind of caucus and you round it up, and then they'll tell you in the different, I think there's 9 different, they'll canvass Iowa, the candidates. And obviously it's Ron DeSantis is playing a lot of his political cards heavy in Iowa. Some would say even more so than New Hampshire. He hasn't forsaken New Hampshire, but DeSantis of Florida putting a lot of stake in getting key endorsements in Iowa. Nikki Haley's there, I think, this week. Paul Steinhauser will break that down. Donald Trump, of course, hoping to do well in Iowa as well. And then the big question is, and I've been around this a long time, and so is our next expert and guest, Paul Steinhauser, does what happened in Iowa transfer to New Hampshire at all? I mean, that's a big question. And over time, usually what happens in Iowa stays in Iowa, but you never know this cycle. And Paul Steinhauser is live in no other place in Iowa on this Wednesday morning. Good morning, New Hampshire. Paul reports nationally for Fox News. I know Nikki Haley's working the caucus process hard, or the different locations. And just explain a little bit, Paul. I'm not saying you have the political science book in front of you. The difference between a caucus and a primary vote, and where independents and Republicans and even Democrats, even though there's no, DNC sanction New Hampshire, they haven't. My point is there'll be activity, but certainly a Republican primary in New Hampshire. Take it away, Paul. Yeah. I was going to ask you, is the sense that Trump does well in this process in Iowa? And, right. And really all that transfers to New Hampshire in terms of the next week are stories like yours and others nationally that come out of Iowa where people will last minute read about it. They won't understand the process, but they're going to say, oh, Trump did well there, or he didn't do so well, or she did well, or she didn't do well. They're just kind of it's sort of a subconscious. I don't think it has a big impact or bearing on the vote here, but what do you think? All right, Paul, do you like it there? You'll be one of the 49,000 or whatever it is flying. Safe flights, Paul. Paul Steinhauser. Thank you, Steiny. Reports nationally for Fox News, locally for us. And of course, the primary will be broadcasting live from the West Wing at St. Anselm College the day of that evening when the results come in. You know, it's kind of a surreal, if you look back to 2020, the primary here, it was really a Democrat show. People forget people's memories today. Isn't it amazing? Like how short our memories are. But just 4 years ago, in the New Hampshire First Nation presidential primary just 4 years ago, 2020. Well, not quite, but I mean, it was 4 years ago in terms of the time period. But people forget it was just a packed Democrat field. There were about what? It's like a football team roster. It's like 18 or 16. I mean, you couldn't even remember all the names. And that was, of course, Bernie Sanders. He won again the last time. And you had, people like Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and then, Joe Biden wasn't great, great New Hampshire primary. In fact, the Biden sort of the wheels of the bus and the planes left Manchester, middle of the afternoon before the votes were even in that day, knowing that he was going to get thumped here, and went right down to South Carolina and turned the thing around. This time around, the irony is after New Hampshire's Republican primary, South Carolina is looming right there. If Trump wins Iowa and Trump wins New Hampshire big, I think there's no stopping Trump. That's just my objective, call the balls and strikes as I see him. But if it's closer between Nikki Haley, hypothetically, and Trump, and it tightens, and it's like a murky finish here, it goes to South Carolina. Well, who's the former governor of South Carolina? Nikki Haley. So South Carolina is going to matter a lot, but really, as Paul said, New Hampshire impacts. And the irony is, here's the irony that a lot of national people aren't even talking about. The irony is, New Hampshire can still impact. Think of this for a moment. January 23rd, New Hampshire can still have profound, big impact on who the nominees are for both major parties. Why? Because Joe Biden is not even running here, but he's doing the powers to be are doing this big, expensive, write-in campaign for Joe Biden. Even though he is ignoring New Hampshire and the DNC, he's not going to be on the ballot, but they're going to do write in his name. Do a big write-in. So you'll see all these ads if you're a Democrat or independent voter voting Democrat. Vote for Joe Biden. He's done great things, and vote for Joe Biden and Biden economics, and vote for Joe. So if Biden does not do well here with the write-in effort, and someone like a Congressman Phillips or someone else resonates, that's a big story. It's going to hurt Joe Biden. It's going to bite him bad. Now, if he wins, in the write-in campaign, not even been on the ballot, good for him. The same with Trump on the Republican side. I've said before, because the story for months now has been a big Trump lead. But you just heard Paul in Iowa, big Trump lead, big Trump poll lead, big Trump poll lead. So Trump has to win big here, I think. I really do. And if he wins big here, I don't think there's any stopping him. But to the contrary, if Trump does not win big here, if he does not win big here, and it's like within single digits, Well, then the national media is going to say, who's the comeback kid? Who came in second? Bill Clinton did that when he ran here, and the late Paul Tsongas won. But Clinton was marching and sort of closed the gap, and was within shooting distance or biting distance of second place. And the story is Bill Clinton kind of came in second, but won New Hampshire. And this could happen again. If Trump doesn't win New Hampshire big, he's going to look vulnerable coming out of here, and it's a race. However, if he wins big, and I'll tell you right now, the $1 billion question behind the scenes with all the analysts and the pundits watching all this is, can Chris Sununu make an impact and impact independence and help Nikki Haley make this a race? That's the question going on behind the scenes. And for just about everyone you ask, a lot of people say yes, because independents can vote. Moderate Democrats can vote for Nikki Haley, for example, or someone else other than Trump could make a difference. And then other people you ask say, no way, no way. No way. Trump's got it won. No way. Trump's got it won. So we'll see. Coming up, though, we're going to hear from our own White House correspondent, John Decker, and he is going to be talking about Hunter Biden and a court appearance. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an H, powered by GMI Asphalt and Paving. They're now paying up to $35 per hour for seasonal workers. Call Christine or simply text PAVE at GMI Asphalt and Paving, 78,000 now, PAVE to 78,000 now. Back on Good Morning Hampshire, The Pulse of an H in a moment. So some of the Trump Republican, actually GOP rivals in the primary reacting to this decision about basically the Colorado ballot ruling, where for that, I believe it's March 5th, that Trump won't be able to be on the ballot in Colorado. Now, is that a big deal? Well, they'll appeal it, no doubt. But when you look at, I think Biden, kind of Colorado's been a Democrat state, so I don't know if it's in play or not. But of course, it's more fuel for the fire, and we'll have much more on this. John Decker, our own White House correspondent, will be checking in with us as we get going, or was supposed to this morning, but a busy morning nonetheless. We'll whether it's interesting with all that water flooding damage, especially in the North Country, the rivers and the places like Jackson and Route 302 up around Littleton and Bretton Woods and Twin Mountain, just gushing with water. And the milder temperatures Sunday and Monday, or Monday during that rain and the winds, really put a dent into the start of or Christmas vacation week skiing. But this morning, beautiful day, plenty of sunshine, cold enough to get the snow guns going. And no doubt the ski areas are cranking out the snow. And of course, the official ski area of this show, Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H, Tenny Mountain, reopening fully this next weekend before the Christmas week for the season, right near Plymouth and not far from the campus of Plymouth State University, Tenny Mountain. All right, John Decker, our own White House correspondent, talking about Hunter Biden, something that's been more in the news lately with a court appearance. Take it away, John. Yeah, just a quick question. I know this is kind of a probably a ambiguous or hard one to answer. This is obviously not great news for the Biden family and his father, the sitting president. But are people, likely voters, separating the two? In other words, I heard this morning on some analysis on what kind of Democrats are leaving the base, or Joe Biden's, why his numbers aren't strong. And it's usually what I hear is younger Democrats and certain other groups of the Democrat base are just disenfranchised. And whether or not they come back, if it comes down to be Biden and Trump again, that's something else. But are voters kind of just Hunter Biden's story goes right over their head? I know a lot of Republicans in the House have their teeth into this, and maybe they should, because I do think people look the other way on all this stuff, and he's finally getting charged. But is it hurting the old man? Is what I'm asking you, as father, the president. Yeah. And of course, where they go if they stay out, there are going to be some third party choices. But again, we're not sure how this all plays out. How ironic. Thank you very much, John Decker, our own White House correspondent. Of course, the question is, you mentioned the border concerns of the border policies. Did you catch that? Did you catch our national news going into the show this morning? Was it 12,000 migrants have been showing up to some of these states and checkpoints just wanting to seek asylum? Like, hey, I'm here. Let me in. Why they think that that's going to happen, I don't know. But of course, hey, just I'm here. Let me in. If you and I try to do that in other countries, we wouldn't be let in. We'd be let into the gulag. But it is a crisis. It is a problem. And Trump is playing much more to his base and his rallies. He's talking very strong about the cost of illegal immigrants in this country, saying some people would say things that are over the top. But he's hitting a nerve, whether it's right or wrong. I mean, this is not by the way, talk about a problem that's not new. Talk about a problem that's not new. This crisis at the border has been going on for years and years, years. And Trump ran on it. If one of the things he talked about when he ran in 2016 was build the wall. Of course, it was never completed. But the point is, it's gotten worse, and it's out of control. It's can be dangerous at times. The problem is the bad guys take advantage of a perfectly good humanitarian crisis. For example, the cartels increase their distribution of things like fentanyl in a porous border. When people are coming across, it only takes a few carriers to bring something in, even if thousands of people are trying to get across, and thousands of people are technically, literally nothing more than people that want to seek asylum here. But the whole, even our handling it as a society and the media, the national media, have kind of morphed our coverage of this story. I mean, a number of years ago, it was illegal aliens were coming into the country in droves, illegal immigrants. And then that term sort of shifted less illegal, less aliens, less immigrant to migrants. Everything's migrants, not illegal migrants, but migrants. And that's sort of the current nomenclature. And then of course you saw so I think Governor Abbott of Texas is the prime leading example. Of course, the governor of Arizona as well. But Texas has had this crisis for years, and finally just shifted a law that basically says if you break into Texas, you're breaking state law, not federal law, because Abbott's felt like his hands are tied to do anything about this. He's trying to defend and protect his own state. He's created a group of leadership in Texas just to protect Texas borders. Abbott and DeSantis out of Florida were sending some of these folks up to places like, D.C. and New York City, just to make a statement, and by plane and bus to say, hey, we have a problem down here. And people were just outraged. Why? Oh my goodness, these southern governors are playing politics with people's lives. And it's just, they're awful. They're just they're Neanderthals. They're awful. And then of course now all of a sudden these very same states like Massachusetts and Boston and New York City, people there are declaring it a state of emergency, even though states like Texas and Arizona have been dealing with this for years. All of a sudden, it's a state of emergency because they can't handle the flow of migrants into places like Boston, Mass. It's a state of emergency. But no one really wanted to do anything about it for years. That's just a fact and some commentary. 603-228-2080. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an H. We got a packed show for you coming up. Going to hear from some of our regular contributors. Alicia Preston-Xanthopoulos on deck a little bit later on, Seacoast Online. Going to hear from our friends at Guyton Forge Financial. Andrew Guyton will have some thoughts on life insurance and why it matters. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an H. Pretty nice looking Wednesday. Some sunshine out there. Hit about 40 for a high. Back on Good Morning, New Hampshire in a moment. All right, welcome back. I was thinking just about the John Decker, our own White House correspondent. By the way, welcome back, Jack Heath, J-Dog on the board. J-Dog, we got all these new things going on. We have a YouTube channel each morning now, 9 to 10, the first hour. We What's that? Yep. We have thousands of people streaming on our Pulse of NH on any smart device or app, nationally and worldwide. We have this network of stations. We have our special coming up on January 17th, Wednesday, on the state of addiction and mental health at the Capitol Center for the Arts at Bank of New Hampshire stage. Number one health issue affecting more families. We're gonna go hit it head on with 3 hours of live. By the way, seating is available and free at that. If you want to come, if you're in a family that has input or questions you want answered or solutions, and get there about 8 o'clock because we go on live at 9. But we have great sponsors, including Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield in New Hampshire, In Stride, Granite Recovery Centers, to name a few. But I was thinking, J-Dog, just during the break there, we spend so much time in this state paying attention to the early national politics because it's a great historical part of the state, even though the National Democrats, don't want New Hampshire to matter anymore. It's got to matter a whole heck of a lot once again. Just when you think it doesn't matter, it's going to. But I just think of the national fatigue and narrative here. And the national media is just so, kind of stuck in the weeds on this one. They're not even seeing the irony is most people don't even like what they're seeing nationally. They don't feel very good about the current administration and results of this, the Bidenomics. They don't feel very good about their pocketbooks and wallets and their financial well-being. They don't feel very good about 2024. And that's why people check out and tune out so much, right? I mean, the news is depressing. It's overwhelming. It's like a bummer. It's divisive. But look at the irony here. You have Joe Biden sort of muscling his way to be the nominee again. And very few people in his own party want that. What a process, right? They've tried lately, by the way, not to get a little glib or comical or facetious. They've tried lately to kind of bolster up. I saw it about a month or two ago when I saw this Sunday night special on 60 Minutes after an NFL game, like, Vice President Harris, you may not know her, but she's right there in the White House, right there next to the president, right there in the Situation Room, playing a leadership role in this administration, even though for 3 years you didn't even know we had a vice president, right? And I'm watching all this going, wow, the Democrats are leaving the base. Young people don't like Joe Biden. The polls show he's too old, too confused. They don't want that again. The numbers stink, and yet no one in the Democrat Party wants to talk about that. They're just hoping. You know what it is? You know what they're hoping? This is the funny thing about politics. The Democrats nationally and locally are just hoping that even though Joe Biden is immensely unpopular among Democrat voters, that once again he'll be the lesser of two evils, that young people will come around to vote for him. The base, I mean, you look at different groups of voters like Latinos, Black voters, all the young voters. They've all left the Democratic base. That's their calling card. That's who voted last time in 2020. They've all gone. But they're hoping if it's Trump again, that Biden can pull it off. That's what they're hoping. But look at the dynamics. I mean, no one in the national media even wants to touch or talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. running as an independent. That's just like a non-story to them, a non-starter. They don't want to talk about, is it Jill Stein running as a Green Party candidate? They don't want to talk about Representative Phillips, the Democrat Congress of Minnesota, running up in New Hampshire. I mean, young, dynamic. They don't want to talk about him. They just kind of want to, hold their nose and get Biden across the line again with a little bit of help. I mean, that's really their game plan. Just, you know what? He's old. He's confused. But you know what? He's the best we got. And then you got Donald Trump on the Republican side. All the legal noise, all the legal distractions, and Trump is just roaring again, roaring like Rory O'Neill, like roaring again, roaring ahead on the charge, having the rallies, storming into Iowa, coming into New Hampshire this past weekend. And even though a lot of Republicans on the sort of establishment side, or the Chris Sununu side, Governor Sununu side of the fence, don't want Trump at all. They think he's terrible for the process, terrible for the Republicans going forward, just like the Democrats think. The irony is, who are the big names? Biden, Trump. In the news every day. I mean, Nikki Haley, I think, alluded to that recently. Trump's in the news all the time. Why wouldn't he be leading in the polls? I mean, Trump's in the news all the time. I mean, the news, you watch CNN, every other story is Trump. Trump, 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 all the time, nonstop. And it may be, well, a couple reasons. One, he's Donald Trump. He's former president, but he's also good news copy, right? I mean, you know, the irony is, as much as Trump took on the national media and they take him on, they can't exist without each other. Think about that. You can't. CNN couldn't exist financially without Trump news. They wouldn't have any viewers. They wouldn't have people throwing things and popcorn at the TV or the flat screens if they didn't have Trump. And Trump wouldn't be Trump if he didn't have the media. They use each other. I don't know. I got buddies who love to catch really, really big fish like tuna and go out there and they'll tell you. But, you know, alongside like a big like shark or whatever, or a whale, there are little fish that swim along like the underbelly. They just kind of feed off the fish as the big fish swims around. They're just sort of feeding, like not bottom feeders. They're like literally like almost attached to the big fish, and like a barnacle, but not really. They just sort of feed off the scraps. And that's what the media is like with Trump. It's amazing. They build them up. All this stuff. You think of all these legal cases, and Chris Christie saying, and John Decker, our own White House correspondent, just pointing that out. If Trump's convicted of any of this January 6th stuff before the election, there's a chance he could be convicted. And that's why in some of these debates, they've been asking the candidates, if Donald Trump were ever convicted of any of these crimes, put your hand up. Would you support him? And the first one to say so is like Vivek Ramaswamy. And then the others, but the point is, it's Trump and Biden every day in the news cycle. And they do very little, the national media, to change that narrative. It's like, this is what they want. This is what the people want. But the thing is, they got it wrong. That's not what the people want. That's the irony here. That's the irony. Most people don't want this matchup. They want to shake it up. Whether they're Trump supporters or not, most people tell you, it's not going to be the same. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I personally, just my own opinion, I just get this gut feeling, if the Democrat numbers continue to hemorrhage, if Biden's base continues to evaporate, I don't think Vice President Harris is going to kind of be the common denominator there to bring people home. I don't see it. And I don't know if Hillary Clinton or someone sails in to save the day at the convention, but I just don't see, personally, I just don't see Joe Biden being the nominee again. And as John Decker and I just talked about, it may have very little to do with Hunter Biden and the business stuff and the charges there, but I just don't see it. Physically, I just don't see it. I mean, just physically, the optics, I don't see it. I personally don't see it. And you need energy going into an election. Where's the energy going to be? And as far as Donald Trump, I mean, look at the beginning of the presidential process before Super Tuesday in March is where it really thins out fast. And you're talking a very quick New Hampshire primary after the Iowa caucus. And if Trump wins both big, I don't think there's any stopping him. Conversely, if he trips or doesn't win New Hampshire big, it could become a race. But it's just ironic that exactly what people probably don't want to see happen is sort of happening again. And the national media does everything it can to kind of ignore the early stuff, write off these candidates, write off Kennedy, write off Phillips, write off anything else. It's Joe Biden, and we don't like Donald Trump, but it's Donald Trump and Biden again. And, it could go that way. The irony is it could very well. I mean, name recognition, for better or for worse. People know the name. It's tough. You think of like being any of these Republicans running or Democrats. Joe Biden, just think about this for a minute. Joe Biden has been a politician and in Washington basically for 50 years, maybe more, right? That's a half a century of the name in the news. Presidential candidate, 2-term vice president, 1-term president. Biden is like, you might as well call I'm not equating it to anything, but any landmark in Washington, the name Joe Biden, talk about it, part of the establishment, it's Joe Biden. There's nothing new there. I mean, at 81 years old, he's been doing this for 60% of his life. Donald Trump entered the scene into that 2016 race and has been sort of running ever since, and running against or running, at attacking things, but he's running. And, you just look at the name, Donald Trump. Trump was famous before he ran. He had built up that name as Trump Towers, Trump, for better or for worse. He's a marketing genius. That show, what was it, The Apprentice, J-Dog? He was on TV. People, they just didn't know Donald Trump. And you know the irony, I have to laugh before I just kind of reflection stuff, not even at the end of the year here yet. The irony, I have to laugh, is how much people who are so-called really liberal Democrats or really progressive Democrats, how much they absolutely despise Donald Trump. They view him as kind of this conservative monster. And the funny thing is, they don't even remember this. The funny thing is, when Trump ran the first time for president and no one knew if he was serious, is Trump really going to run? He's just doing this for a marketing. It's just like an experiment. He's just trying to he's not going to run. And he ran. And the true pundits and analysts didn't know if he was going to run as an independent, a Democrat, or a Republican, because he was very non-defined when he was Donald Trump, the New York TV business developer, hotel guy. He was just Donald Trump. He was just Donald Trump. No one really, I mean, I look at conservatives, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, classic conservatives. The problem the Republican Party has, and the Democrat too, it has an identity crisis. Is it the party of Trump? Or is it the party of, in New Hampshire, is it the party of Chris Sununu, Republicans? Is it the party of Trump? Is it the party of small business values, less, limited federal government, pro-business? What does the Republican Party stand for? And in the last several years, it's been one thing, two words, Donald Trump. And when he first ran, no one even knew what his political stripes were. No one even knew. And I don't think he's inherently a big conservative person, but people on the far left view him as absolute conservative menace threat. And it's just amazing how all this works. Then you look at Joe Biden, who, his own party is going left of him. I mean, I've been critical of the Biden policies over the years since he's been president, but I will tell you, I don't think he got the Israeli support wrong. But even Democrats in his own party thought he went over the top, and they weren't so supportive of Israel. And I think that kind of helped foster a lot of the anti-Semitism we've seen in this country and on college campuses, because the real Democrat Party is so far left of Biden that they don't even want to support our only ally in the Middle East, Israel, who was attacked viciously and savagely on October 7th. It's amazing. They don't even want to support Israel. They're so caught up in their politics, which are, in my opinion, are anti-American, pure socialism, that many of these Democrats, they won't come out and say it, but they almost want to dignify and support Hamas as a legitimate political organization and blame Israel for October 7th. It's amazing stuff. So it's just funny how the national media, it sometimes just perpetuates and fosters this ongoing narrative. Some commentary. 603-228-2080. We'll take a quick break. Good morning, New Hampshire, the pulse of an age. We'll be back in a moment. Yeah, I always have to laugh at the subjectivity of news, national news coverage, but the point is, the problem is, you can talk about AI and everything else. The problem is, news can be and is subjective, and the funny thing is, everything in life is subjective when you think about it. Welcome back, by the way. Good morning, New Hampshire. The Pulse of an H. Jack, Heath, J Dog on the board. It's got a full show for you coming up. But when you think about it, everything's subjective. Everything's supposed to be objective and pure. But I remember when I was years ago, when I was a young news director, as they say, at WMUR TV. I used to, I'd go and walk the kids to the bus stop in the morning. I'd listen to people, and I'd go in and have our meetings with a lot of great folks. Some of them had gone to journalism school. I did not. And I'd be sitting there listening, and they're talking about news and what we should be covering. And it's a human process when you sit around a newsroom or you have editors, producers. It's a human subjective process. You don't have a book I used to share with people that you open up to page 226 and it tells you on Wednesday if it's 42 degrees. It's not like the news almanac where it tells you what to cover. News is what is in front of you. News is what people are talking about. If the economy is tough, that's your news story. People are, if budgets are tight, if interest rates are going up, if the price of gas is low or high, if there's a war going on, it's pretty much people react to what's in front of them. And I used to go to the bus stops and listen to people, what they were talking about. And we'd have these meetings, and we'd always kind of shape the day, and you put a newscast together, and human beings put the newscast together. And you've seen it in the national media. The problem with the news today, nationally more than locally, the problem is in the news today is people aren't watching it anymore because it's become political activism. And the problem, even with our institutions and our legal stuff and our attorney general's offices and the U.S. attorneys and the Department of Justice, is to most people, they can see the politics and the human subjectivity right through it. Let me just point this out. I am not here to defend or prosecute anyone, and I'm not going to play a lawyer on my own show. But I love, like, some of these shows like Blue Bloods or Law and Order, CSI. And when you watch these, television legal prosecution crime documentaries, you can see that in most cases there's a district attorney, a prosecutor, or an attorney general, and they make human subjective decisions on what case to go after. In a big city, for example, when, in years past, and you'll get like a Rudy Giuliani, or, U.S. attorneys go in way back and they go after like the Gambino family, or in Boston, the Rhode Island stuff, the mafia, or someone makes a decision. The FBI over the years, they botched all that stuff up with Whitey Bulger. Someone made a decision to make him an informant, a human subjective decision. I don't care what law school you go to. I don't care what. It's not pure objective. A district attorney, a U.S. attorney, an attorney general, the Department of Justice, they make a conscious decision. They can't go after everything. So they decide. Look at the attorney general in New York City and this Trump stuff with his businesses and the civil fraud trial. She campaigned on this. I'm going to get Trump. And did everything they could. Because you know what? I'm just going to say this. I'm not going to defend Donald Trump. He's got a team of lawyers to do that. But let me point one thing up, and that New York City trial that's been going on, that's the biggest crock of what I've ever seen. That's pure human subjective politics. It is. There's no criminal charges. People don't know that. They're not after Trump and his family and his kids and his business license for any criminal wrongdoing. They're after him for civil fraud stuff. And when you have a jury waived judge who's politically active and an attorney general after the subject, Donald Trump and his family, they can write the book on that one. And they can say that, we're going to fine them $250 million and take away his license because they did this, this, and this. They're a private business. And yet this trial has been going on and on and on. And I'll tell you right now, a lot of business owners should be waking up to this, because you don't have to be Donald Trump, but to realize, and that's why Trump, mistakenly or not, said, hey, if I get in there, I'm going to go after them the way they did me. That's Trump. A lot of people don't like that. I at times don't like that. He tends to over fight certain people and things to the point where it's like a dog getting a hot spot and just itching it over and over again. A lot of people just want to see things move forward, but Trump is all about getting even. That's his nature. Just watch a documentary on him on Netflix when he was a young business developer. You hit him, he hits back twice as hard. And a lot of his supporters love that about him. But I'm telling you right now, all this stuff, the national news media and what they cover, remember the 60 Minutes piece way back? They went after DeSantis like there was no tomorrow. When Ron DeSantis was getting reelected to Florida, the biggest Republican name in the country, oh, they went after him big time. And 60 Minutes of all organizations and entities did that hit piece on him during the COVID stuff, claiming that, he'd favored certain donors, like the whole Publix, the grocery store that's publicly, he only took care of certain people, and they didn't even let him respond. And then they failed to point out in the piece that Publix had donated to Democrats. It was such a political hit piece. It aired one night, but they went after DeSantis because of politics, not news. They went after DeSantis on politics. Have you ever seen him do a piece on Hunter and Joe Biden and the business dealings, objectively enterprise investigation? No. Doesn't fit the narrative. Doesn't fit the human subjective politics and narrative. So you look at national media, they've lost a lot of credibility because for some reason, for whatever reason, the editors and the producers felt like they had to become political activists, like political campaign people. Pick a side. Pick a side. Everyone else is picking a side. Pick a side. I'm going to pick a side here because everything's a fight. We're going to go after him. We're going to go after her. That's what they do. And a lot of people turn it off. They turn it off. They tune it out. People lose. They want information, and they want to think about things. They want to make up their own decisions. And they can see the blatant stuff more than the media thinks. And the sad thing is, fewer people are watching television news. They can't watch a newscast anymore. And it used to be a great place to get information. Now, people read about it. They can pull it up on their phone. They check everything out where they want to get the latest on Ukraine, the Red Sea, the drones, the shipping in the Red Sea, latest on Israel, Hamas, latest on the Hunter Biden stuff, latest on the economy, latest on interest rates, latest on this, latest on that. They just look it up. And news media, TV-wise, are shrinking, losing base. But at some point along the way, and I'll tell you right now, it's not just media. It's not just our courts. It's not just our justice system, but it's our academic system. I would end and argue with this. Harvard University's early enrollment is down to a 4-year low, 17%, because of political activism among the administration on campus. And parents are waking up to that. They don't want their kids indoctrinated. They want their kids educated. So why are they going to spend $80,000, $90,000 or $500,000 to send their kid with bubble wrap to Harvard or Cornell or Columbia or UPenn to be indoctrinated? Because the professors there decided decades ago to stop teaching and be political activists like campaign workers and pick a side and educate your young people in front of you that America stinks. Conservatives are bad. We're the problem. You're the problem. Your parents who have more money are the problem. People like China, Russia, they're good systems. America's broken. We're the problem. This has been going on in universities and colleges for 20 years in America. Again, human subjective decisions. So if you want to blame Trump for your toe pain, your arthritis, your gout, your back pain, go ahead. You want to blame Biden for your same arthritis and problems, go ahead. But this has been fostering in the media, academics, and I would even say judicially for about 20 years now. So the pick a side, gotcha politics has been brewing long before the current players on the stage. Some commentary, 603-228-2080. We come back. Some of our regular contributors are going to hear from the Guyton Forge financial folks on some of the tips as we look at the year end. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Nice sunny day out there for you. 40 for a high today. Enjoy it. Nice looking Wednesday. Jack, Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Back in a moment.